Hey, welcome back to the Sunday Serving channel, where you come every week for some hope and some inspiration, some wisdom from the gospel. And I was thinking, a couple of weeks ago, around the time of Pentecost, we talked about the story of the Holy Spirit coming and how the believers were cut to the heart. And many were baptized and many believed. And then the fruits of that, when the Spirit came, was community, was people bringing what they had, selling their possessions, selling their houses, their decks, bringing the proceeds, laying them at the apostles' feet, and sharing, and helping each other, and meeting together frequently in their households, and gathering in the temple to hear the word from the apostles. That must have been a very exciting time. And I know we covered some other things, but if we go back to the book of Acts, right after that, after Acts 4, there's a story that's easy to skip over because it's kind of hard to see hope if someone falls down and dies. But I think it's important not to skip this story over. So this is Acts 5. Let's take a lesson and see. Maybe we can find some hope in this story after all. It's Ananias and Sapphira. So this is right after, it says, Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, sold a field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. So people were doing this, and you can imagine maybe there was some pressure. Hey, talk to your wife, maybe we should do this too. We don't really want to, but I think we should. So anyways, it says, a man named Ananias, together with his wife, Sapphira, also sold a piece of property. Wonderful. We want to do this too. They sold their property. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back a part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? Sell the property, keep a little nest egg, little fallback plan B. And let's bring the rest. Let's give that to the apostles. Let's try that. Then Peter said, so Apostle Peter, Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for the land? Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? So where was the sin here? Was it, it was his free will to sell the property and to donate that, to bring it to the apostles to share. So, and that's what Peter says here. It was your property. You chose to sell it. It was at your disposal once you sold it what to do with it. But, Peter goes on, you have not just lied to human beings, but to God. Now listen, this is harsh. When Ananias heard this, he fell down and died, and great fear seized all who heard what had happened. You can imagine. Well, then some young men came forward, wrapped up his body, and carried it out and buried it. That was nice of them. They just walked in and rolled it up in a carpet and buried it. Must not have told the family, because it goes on. 3 hours later, that's not very long for a burial, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. Peter asked her, tell me, is this the price? He probably still had those naira, or I guess they weren't dollar bills, but he must have had the money that husband had brought. Is this the price that you and Ananias got for the land? Yes, she said, that is a price. Again, the lie. Peter said to her, how could you conspire to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the feet of the man who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. Sounds pretty harsh. At that moment, she fell down at his feet and died. Then the young men came in, and finding her dead, carried her out and buried her beside her husband. So they did that much for her. Great fear seized the whole church and all who heard about these events. Now, so where Where's the redemption? Where's the hope in this story? Well, I think actually there's a lot of hope if you think about it. You can't get away with lying to God and to the Spirit. There's no such thing as virtue signaling. Be genuine, live from the heart. You can choose to keep your property. You don't need to give it all to the Lord, but if you do give it to the Lord, give it with your free heart. Don't pretend. Don't try to appear good before others. And it's important that truth stands as truth. And so I think that there is hope in this. And then, of course, the stories go on. And that's what I like. Okay, so it talks about the fear seizing the heart of the gathered. It's not a fear to oppress or to make them scared. It's like, wow, God sees, and we better pay attention. What does God want? And there's freedom and there's joy in that. And it talks after that. It says, after this, the apostles performed many signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers used to meet together in Solomon's colonnade. I guess that was outside the temple, where there were stone pillars. Here we have nice wooden pillars, and there must have been nice open space, maybe covered, and they would meet there, and the apostles would tell the teachings of Jesus, all the things that he had taught to them, maybe the Sermon on the Mount. And it says, no one else dared to join them, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Nevertheless, more and more men and women believed in the Lord and were added to their number. And then this is the amazing part. This is the hopeful part. When we gather to believe, to follow Jesus, miracles happen. It says, as a result, people brought their sick into the streets and laid them on beds and mats, so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. Crowds gathered also from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing their sick and those tormented by impure spirits, and all of them were healed. All, without exception. So this fear that seized the hearts of those that saw these events, it led to change, positive change, redemption, freedom from sickness, from sin, from worry, from mental illness. And it wasn't the power in the apostles or the people. It's the power of God, the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of Jesus that frees, that forgives, that heals. That is the hope. And so take hope from this story, even though I know it's a difficult story. I've often tried to avoid it because who wants to fall down and die? But the moral is, don't lie to God. You can't lie to God. Have hope in true redemption, in following God's ways, in forgiveness. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. There we go.